Today we're looking into another camera from before my time. Surprisingly, we haven't had any of this brand of camera on here before, despite the fact that I actually do know them. It's a Polaroid. Polaroid Automatic 210 land camera. Does that mean that there's a sea camera and maybe an air camera as well? No, it was named after Edwin Land, who worked for Polaroid and, as far as I know, invented the technology for developing photographs within the camera or directly on the film. What Polaroid is known for. We'll talk more about it later. But this is the camera. It's interesting, and I first started looking at it. This originally came with a cover that would cover all this up. That's not here, but it did have a few things that were numbered. So we can see there's a number 1 there, a number 1 over there as well. So there's your first step, is number 1. These go up until this comes out. And then this entire thing, oh, look. And it's got these rod systems to hold it out. Folding bellows, much like the camera we talked about last week as well. Pretty cool. Now, very clearly, this was a step in the direction of making photography more accessible to everyone. And as a matter of fact, it was extremely popular, this camera right here. Here's what I found online. They were made in 1967 or 1969. I found information for both. Don't know for sure, but it sold for a list price of $49.95. It was the first color-capable Polaroid to sell for under $50. It's reported that Polaroid made 1.5 million of these, so it was very popular. And another source that I could find, landlist.org, which specifically talks about land cameras, claims that this was the first color-capable Polaroid camera to retail under $50, which no doubt did much to fuel its popularity at the time. In 1969, $49.95 was $442.40 today. Still was not cheap for sure, but it's hard to compare to today's numbers as far as like buying a camera today. But $442 would not be, money that I just have laying around to buy a camera. This is a significant purchase, but it clearly, like I said, is a step towards making it more accessible, making it easier for everyone. Now, I got a little confused here. We've got numbered steps to tell you how you need to get it out. 1 clearly helps brings the lens out, extends the bellows. You're ready to take a picture. 2 is here. And 3 is there, but 2 does nothing until you do 3. And then you've pulled that down and it releases the shutter. I don't know why it's in this order. I looked at the manual. I couldn't figure out with what steps it was going for, but sure. Number 4 is back here though. And this is really interesting because it's got this latch here. And it opens up this part, and it's huge. It's just this giant thing. It uses a technology that I've never heard of. Polaroid was developing the cartridges that would go in here with your film exposures. It's so big. Something called peel-apart film, which again, I did not know anything about until researching it here. It would begin development once removed from the camera. Now, this is clearly where it started going for Polaroid cameras later on, but how this would work, you would have your photos in there, you would take the photo, and then you would take your exposure, your picture, and pull it out, and you had to peel it out a very specific way. It talked about, I saw more instructions about that than anything else in the camera, was how you would actually take it out, because you had to very carefully peel it out. It talked about grab it by the white or the yellow, but don't grab the other one. There were certain colors so that you could do that. It basically took it and it would expose the photograph would begin developing because there were chemicals in there on the 2 sides. And it was very specific on how you should handle it and don't touch it in certain ways because you'll get developing chemicals all over your fingers. Very clearly, I can see where this is going. And as a matter of fact, a little anecdote from my family specifically, we did not have anything like this, but we did have a Polaroid camera. We had the more traditional box-shaped, the one that if you think of Polaroid, that's what you think of, I assume. I hope to get one in the future at some point to have in the collection, just because that was what we had. We had that box with the viewfinder that you would look in, you would take the picture, and it would print out the little photo right out the front that would start developing, and you'd need to give it 5 or 10 minutes. And then we would take it and we would shake the photo. Why did we do that? I don't understand where that spread from, that myth. Unless Polaroid themselves were the ones who were saying, oh, do this so it develops faster. I don't think that they did that because I've heard that they said, don't do that. Don't shake it like a Polaroid picture, no matter what the song says. That song came out way later, had nothing to do with that. But that it was it was widespread that people would print their, they would take a Polaroid photo. And that even that phrase right there was something that within my family, I don't know how widespread it was everywhere, but I can tell you that we called it taking a Polaroid. We did not say go get the camera and take a picture, because we did have other cameras as far as I know, but no one was allowed to touch the really expensive 35 millimeter ones. But if you were going to just take a Polaroid photo, you would take a Polaroid. That's what we called it. I don't know if that was everywhere. I know that was my family. I remember us calling it that, but I don't know if that was everywhere. But I do remember us taking the photo. Specifically, I remember one time there was a rainbow out the front door, and we went out and took a picture of it. And then we're just like checking every few minutes to see if it develops, because we have no idea whether or not it's going to be able to show the rainbow. And it did. And then it went on the fridge and it sat there forever. I don't know how long or where that photo ended up now, but I do remember us doing that at some point. So this was a really interesting trip, almost down memory lane. It was like adjacent to memory lane. I was one street over from memory lane, and then I wound up detouring onto it by accident because we did have a Polaroid camera. It wasn't this one, not at all. We were not using a camera from the 60s or 70s in the 90s when I was a child, but we did have a Polaroid, and it reminded me of a lot. And I can see where they clearly went, and over 30 years or however long, I'm going to look up that other Polaroid camera. I really hope to get one at some point, the one that we did have, but it's clear where they were going with this. Even as far back in the 60s, they were trying to put the developing process immediately into the camera. Nobody else was doing this, right? As far as I know, this was their thing, and it made them very popular. And they've even come back around with cameras nowadays. I don't know. It was a couple years ago. I remember my sister going, look at, I bought this, and is it a gimmick? No, because it does have that certain, like, you take the picture, you get to see it, and you have a physical object right there and then. It's very different from digital photography, but I understand that gratification, that instant gratification, and that ability to have a photo immediately. It's a neat concept. It's cool that they came back around. I think it was only like $80 to buy one of those newer, I forget the brand. I don't know if they just took the idea that Polaroid was doing or if they actually branded with Polaroid, but that definitely made me go, oh yeah, I remember when we had a Polaroid that would do that. You'd take a picture, printed it right away. Didn't really print it, but it would develop it right away, and it was cool. And this is cool. It's really neat to see where they came from and how they got to this point. Again, just like last week, I really like cameras that have a bellows. It just looks cool. I like that. I like a folding bellows. And this is really interesting. Although it's not super technical and I wasn't able to find a ton of information on it, I still had a great time researching it. This was really cool. I'm happy to have this on the shelf. That's going to do it. Next week, we have something a little bit different, but we do have another camera to look at. Goes without saying, but all of this whole thing for sure, and going down and researching and learning, something that I like.